means you're a leader.
There were a few factors that I needed to certify before I was going to believe in the project, and that was what David Mackenzie, the director, what his incentives were and intentions were. It was beneficial to know that Jonathan Assar was writing from first-hand experience. And then I guess the only other factor was that very important to know that we wasn't going to glamorise and at least shoot the film and the story with the right intentions. I'm always more persuaded by projects when they're in like a realistic realm.
The film was trying to explore a kind of authenticity, the reality of filming in that location, which is a real intact prison, with former prison. The only thing that was sort of really not there was some of the furniture, meant that we were always in this kind of environment, which was the environment of the movie. So to anything that we could do to kind of help that come alive was keeping it feeling a little bit more documentary.
We were shooting sequentially, and we were handheld. David had the intention to catch up with the action as opposed to us rehearse something and display it for a camera. So that's why he used the free range while he was shooting.
And that also meant the acting could just be more real. They weren't hitting marks. And I love the idea of shooting in sequence, which we did, which was the first time I've ever done it. Obviously, that's easier in a single location, which this film was. But if there's any way I can try and find ways of shooting in sequence again, I'll definitely take it, because it just means you're all going on the journey together. The process becomes alive and a voyage of discovery.
Over here. Face the wall. And you get.
It was an incredibly easy casting process for me with Jack, because I saw a tape of him in amongst a whole bunch of the cream of the crop of young British talent, many of whom were also great, but he stood out to me in that, and I met him and we engaged, and I knew he had an understanding of the character, and he really related to him, and I knew that he would throw himself at it, and he sure did. And I think it's a great performance, and a passionate performance, and a hell of a lot of dedication, and he just went. He was a dog with a bone.
What I initially thought Startup would allow me to do would be to be able to epitomise a character that isn't necessarily on the right side of the law, and also explain him. Someone who, in the eyes of the law, is a guilty individual. I really welcome the opportunity to lead a film in that setting and have total control over this who's described in the film as a leader. So I wanted to add these layers to him, and I thought from reading the script initially that the film would give me enough opportunity to do that.
I'm prepared to offer you a place back on the wing, and a special kind of therapy with Mr. Baumer, with whom you cooperated upstairs. But one more incident of any kind that comes to my attention, you'll be straight back down here.
Is this one problem?
You're going to tell me what that is?
I'm just saying. Say this therapy goes well, and it changes my life, and I rehabilitate. And then you lay it on for the next geezer, and it works for him and the next. And everything's sweet, yeah? Crime rates start to come down, police got less people to nick, courts got less people to convict. Pretty soon, you're out of a job. Do you mind?
Jack was very, very keen not to really sort of read ahead, just to be in the scene. And I'm very much I like to consider the script to be a set of ingredients, and we cook the scene up, and it becomes something different than the bit of paper that it started off as. And so I'm very happy when people kind of go into the scene just worrying about the scene and not really worrying about what else is going on in their back and forward stories.
Once you know your character well enough, it is a total luxury to be in this convincing setting, be able to shoot all angles of it as well, because that plays a huge part, you know. With a character like Eric, I had to adopt a walk, I had to adopt a certain state of mind, I guess even a stare, the way he'd look at people and stuff, and for that to feel authentic and not forced, that I had to feel like a custom of my own. I had to feel familiar enough, you know, to believe myself while I was doing it, to the point where it's subconscious. So the physical stuff as well comes into play in the sense that, I guess, you know, he might be more flippant with violence than I am, certainly. So, I mean, I guess that I did have to sort of teach myself a little, you know, what it is to be that person in that environment. And then that kind of stuff helps as well, you know, when you do the research and you really begin to understand the setting and the mentality. I mean, it definitely differs from more conventional styles of working that I've had to familiarise myself with. Definitely prefer this one, though, if you wanted me to choose.
Stay with it. Stay with it, that's it. Stay with it. Breathe with it. Breathe with it.
Done well.
Yeah, it was good. Straight.
Yeah, it was all right.
He's smiling, look at him, he's smiling, he's smiling.
He knows he done well. Go on. Anger management, control.
I've never made a genre film. I made 8 films. It's my 8th film, and it's my first genre film. You know, and it's inescapably a genre movie, which is kind of great. But even in its rawest form, and Jonathan and I worked on it together for 2 years. But there was this idea, and we've evolved it. But this very strong idea of one or two relationships that form within the course of this journey in this very hostile environment, being quite emotional and quite connected and compassionate and human, and that felt really exciting to me, to have something that you could play totally straight, but somehow or other smuggle in some real emotion, some real heart.
I think it's very sensitively handled as well, you know, free of exposition. We just, after a while of knowing this kid, we end up hearing about his story. There were certain scenes that ended up being totally different to what they were on paper. Like, one example, towards the end, and basically it's a moment between him and his dad, and I just felt compelled to burst into tears. I mean, it might make sense when you're watching it, and I'm doing my best to tiptoe around it so I don't spoil anything, but yeah, there was one point where Ben's performance broke me, and that wasn't scripted, and no one discussed it beforehand, and we just rolled with it, and yeah, it ended up becoming a feature of the film. And that's what appealed to me when I first read the script, is that what I had on page was this 19-year-old adult who's in this environment where on a daily basis he has to survive.
Yes, yes.
Weapons down, stand against the back wall.
Let's go in.
It's almost like a horror movie, you know, because you know something, you know this is an environment where things are going to, you know, the bogeyman's going to do something, you know what I mean? And so you have this great tension, and the tension, and then the sort of, I guess, kinetics of the violence, you know, when it comes to time to do it, and that feels very, it's a horrible thing to say, but it feels very cinematic.